If you hear the word REIT and your brain goes straight to landlord stuff, not for me, you're not alone. But that instinct is costing you real income. Most people either skip REITs completely or they pick one because the yield number looked huge and end up owning something that cuts its dividend in half 2 years later. Neither one has to be you. I've spent a lot of time going through REIT filings, occupancy reports, and payout histories, because most of what gets said about this asset class online is either REITs are boring and safe, or REITs are landlord stocks, and neither one is actually true. Today I'm ranking the 5 REITs that have earned a spot in a live-off dividends portfolio, not by who has the highest yield, but by who's actually kept paying through recessions and rate hikes without cutting. Real payout histories, real occupancy numbers, and math you can check yourself before you put $1 in. Quick roadmap before we get into it. First, I'll show you the mistake that sends most new REIT investors straight into a yield trap. Then, a REIT tax rule that's now permanent and that almost nobody uses correctly, one that can cost you the entire benefit if you get a single detail wrong. After that, the tier list itself. 5 REITs, ranked, with the exact number and the exact mechanism behind each one. Then I'll walk through what this actually looks like at 3 different investment sizes so you can see where you'd land. And at the end, I'll give you a formula so you can run this math on your own money on any REIT, not just the 5 I'm covering. Here's the first mistake. Most people who go looking for REIT income sort by yield, highest to lowest, and buy whatever's at the top of the list. On paper, that seems reasonable. A REIT paying 11 or 12% looks like it's just handing you more money, but a REIT's yield is just its dividend divided by its share price. And if the share price collapses because the business is actually in trouble, the yield number goes up right along with the danger. You've probably seen this pattern before. A REIT that used to pay a modest, well-covered dividend runs into trouble with a tenant or a bad debt load. The stock price drops 60 or 70%, and suddenly the yield looks incredible on a stock screener right before the company cuts the dividend to nearly nothing. The yield didn't get better. The stock just got worse, and the market hadn't caught up yet. That's why every pick on this list gets judged on payout coverage and occupancy first, and yield second. Keep that in mind as we go. Now the tax rule. As of the tax law signed last year, REIT dividends come with a permanent 20% deduction. If you're in the 37% bracket, your effective tax rate on REIT income drops closer to 29.6%. It used to be set to expire. Now, it isn't. Here's the catch almost nobody follows. The IRS only gives you that deduction if you've actually held the shares long enough. More than 45 days inside a 91-day window that starts 45 days before the ex-dividend date, the cutoff for who gets paid. Sell too early, and that same dividend gets taxed as regular income, full rate, no discount. Your broker reports the dividend the exact same way either way. Checking whether you actually qualify is on you. Here's what that actually costs in dollars. Say you're in the 32% bracket and you collect $1,000 in REIT dividends this year. If you qualify for the deduction, you're only taxed on $800 of that, which comes out to $256 in tax. If you don't qualify because you traded in and out too fast, you're taxed on the full $1,000, which is $320. That's $64 gone on just $1,000 of dividends for a mistake most people don't even know they're making. Scale that up to a real portfolio and it adds up fast. Call it the 45-day rule. Hold through it, or you're leaving money on the table without ever knowing it. That's the mistake to avoid and the tax rule to use. Let's get into the list. Starting at number 5, Agree Realty. Ticker ADC. This is the lowest yield on the list, sitting around 4.2%, but it earns its spot because of what I'd call the coverage cushion. Agree Realty only pays out around 70% of its cash flow as dividends, which means there's real room underneath the payout before anything gets stressed. Unlike a REIT paying out 95 or 100% of what it earns. It also grew its real cash earnings by nearly 8% year over year in early 2026, and it's been recapturing rent on old leases at rates over 100%, meaning new tenants are paying more than the old ones did. It pays monthly. At around $75 a share, $10,000 gets you roughly 132 shares, paying out somewhere around $423 a year. This one's a fit if you want growth alongside your income, not just the income itself. It's not the pick for someone who needs the biggest check possible today. Number 4, Federal Realty, ticker FART. This one has the longest streak of any REIT in the country. 58 straight years of raising its dividend. That's not a typo. It's officially a dividend king, and it got there by owning shopping centers in dense, high-income areas where retail space is genuinely hard to replace. The trade-off is yield. It's the lowest on this list, somewhere around 3.7%. You're not buying FRT for income today. You're buying it because a company that hasn't skipped a raise since before most of us were born has earned the benefit of the doubt on income 10 years from now. If your timeline is short and you need income now, this isn't your pick. If you're building for the long run and want the safest bet on this list, it probably is. Number 3. Ticker NNN. This one's built on what I call the occupancy signal. 98.6% of its properties were leased and paying rent as of early 2026. And unlike some of its competitors, it had zero exposure to the wave of major tenant bankruptcies that hit the retail REIT space this year. That matters more than people realize, because a REIT's dividend is only as safe as the rent actually coming in. 36 straight years of dividend increases, the third longest streak of any REIT in the country. Yield sits around 5.3 to 5.6%. $10,000 in NNN buys around 215 shares, paying out close to $516 a year. This is close to the middle of the pack on every measure here, which is exactly why it works well as a core holding instead of a standout. Number 2. VICI Properties, ticker VICI. VICI owns the actual land under casinos on the Vegas Strip and other experiential real estate, and the standout feature here is the inflation lease. Nearly half of its leases are already tied to inflation, and that share is contracted to climb to 87% by 2035. That means the rent checks are legally built to rise with the cost of living, not just hope to, which matters a lot if you're trying to build income that doesn't lose ground every year. 8 straight years of dividend growth since its 2018 IPO, and it hasn't missed a rent collection since it was formed, even through the pandemic. Highest yield on this list, around 6.3 to 6.6%. $10,000 gets you roughly 377 shares, paying close to $678 a year. The trade-off to know about is concentration. A large piece of VICI's income still comes from a small number of casino operators, so it's less diversified by tenant than some of the others on this list. And number 1, Realty Income, ticker O, the one most of you have probably already heard of, and there's a reason for that. This is a member of the S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats, and it has declared a dividend every single month for over 600 consecutive months, more than 50 years, without a single miss, through multiple recessions and every rate environment you can name. It's also expanding past its traditional retail base into hyperscale data center partnerships, which gives it a growth angle most people don't associate with this stock. Yield sits around 5.1%. $10,000 buys roughly 161 shares, paying about $524 a year. If you only ever buy one REIT in your life, the track record here makes the strongest case for being that one. So here's how you check this for your own money on any of these or any REIT you're looking at. Take the dollar amount you're planning to invest, multiply it by the REIT's current yield, divide that by 12. That's your REIT income number, your actual expected monthly payout, before taxes, at today's price. Let's run it at 3 different sizes, using a blended yield across all 5 of these picks, which comes out to right around 5%. At $10,000 invested, spread across the 5, you're looking at roughly $500 a year, or about $42 a month. That's not retirement income, that's a phone bill. At $50,000 invested, the same blend gets you close to $2,500 a year, or around $208 a month. That starts to feel like something, a car payment or a chunk of a grocery bill, every single month, without touching the principal. At $150,000 invested, you're looking at roughly $7,500 a year, or about $625 a month. Combined with Social Security or another income source, that's a real meaningful supplement. None of these numbers are the point on their own. The point is that the formula is yours to run at whatever number actually applies to you, not the examples I'm giving you. Let's bring this together. 5 REITs, 5 different reasons to own them. Agree Realty for the coverage cushion, room under the payout to keep growing. Federal Realty for the Streak King track record, the longest in the entire sector. NNN REIT for the occupancy signal, rent that's actually coming in. VICI Properties for the inflation lease, rent checks built to rise with the cost of living, and Realty Income for the monthly streak, over 600 months of never missing a payment. Before you buy any of them, remember the 45-day rule, because holding through that window is what actually gets you the tax break. And remember the mistake from the start of this video. Yield first is how people end up owning the REIT that's about to cut, not the one that's actually paying. So if REITs still feel like landlord stuff to you, they're not. They're publicly traded, they report their occupancy and their payout ratios every single quarter, and now you know exactly which numbers to check before you trust one with your money. You don't need to be a landlord, you just needed the right 5. Before you go, I want to know where you're starting from. Are you looking to add REITs to a portfolio you already have? Or is this your first time considering real estate income at all? And of the 5 I covered, which one are you actually considering buying? Drop it in the comments. I read every one and it shapes what I cover next. If picking 5 individual stocks feels like more work than you want to take on, there's an easier version of the same idea. Funds that already hold dozens of REITs for you, ranked the same way, in this video right here.